This is the 39th episode of the Advisor Tech Book Live podcast, and my guest today is Kerri Fernsworth. And she said to announce her just as a human being, not with a company. So we're just gonna roll with that. Welcome, Kerri.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I don't think I've ever been announced as just a human being, and it feels good. Thank you for offering that.
So what sparked this conversation was a LinkedIn post you did, and one of the paragraphs in the post said something about paying attention to our intuition. So I wanted to dive deep into what exactly paying attention to intuition means, and then hopefully we can apply it to financial advisors in some way.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I was I try to rehearse, and then know that everything is just gonna like we're just having a conversation. Like this
Right.
is what I tell everybody to prep them for video stuff, but it happens. But one thing like that came out sort of in like gathering my notes on this was like what is intuition and really distinguishing the difference between like you have an impulse, right? And taking the time to discern, is that a reactive, like a habit, that's unhealthy, that doesn't serve me anymore? Is it an instinct? Maybe it's something that like my ancestors needed for survival. Or is that my intuition? And like really getting clear, for me, it's hard to discern those between those three. Um, and it takes time and practice. And also, I think part of the conversation is like, why is that? Why is it that that's hard to do? Why are we out
Sure.
of touch with those distinguishing things?
Is trusting your gut another way to say it? Like that's a more I think that's one that more people have heard or can connect with maybe.
It is, yeah, and but it's interesting because, like, my gut for me will be like, well, is that anxiety or is that intuition? Like, I'm disconnected from my gut feelings, um, for many reasons, so, like,
Sure.
rebuilding that bridge. But yes, absolutely, that's just another phrase. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll tell a short story from a book and then maybe we can dive into it. So Mickey Singer wrote a book called The Untethered Soul. And so he's trying to explain where energy comes from. And I think energy and intuition maybe come from a somewhat similar source. But he says, let's say there's two 20-year-olds and they're dating and they're madly in love. And then for some reason, one of them decides to break up suddenly. So they're broken up and like the next couple months go by. They're one I don't know, I don't remember which one it was, but let's say the guy is completely depressed and he's like sitting around at home and feels really sad and broken and lethargic and maybe but then all of a sudden he gets a text or a phone call and is like, I'm so sorry I broke up with you. Let's get back together, let's go hang out this evening or something. He's like, he'll jump right up, clean the entire apartment, you know, be excited. He's like, that's not energy from like calories, that's energy from something else. So interested in your take on that. And then how does energy relate to like intuition?
Yeah, interesting. Well, I mean, my first thought on that, and like I'll be really vulnerable. I'm divorced and I'm dating for the first time in my life and like really diving deep into my own like 20-year-old psyche as a middle-aged woman. And like there's a dopamine rush. Like there is something in your body, in that scenario that you're describing that's like gives you energy. So on the physical level, like I think there's like an explanation for that. I'm not a medical scientist by any mean, but like that energy from inside your body that you can listen to and receive. And there's also a like some kind of energetics from like another person. Like there is, some kind of maybe more mysterious thing there as well that you feel from somebody, an interest that isn't just physiological. Yeah. But I think it's interesting, like, and also for me, like, I chose, or I fell into, as a teenager, a really, fundamentalist Christian, very culture of control kind of experience, and that, um that left me not, not really being able to discern what is my intuition, what is this God force outside of me.
Sure.
So I think there's like also something I'm really learning to understand is like that it's wisdom from my body. Intuition is wisdom from inside of me. It's not an outside force. And that can get into like, well, what is universal oneness consciousness? Are we all one? Or, is anything an outside force? But I think if someone is just starting to think about like, well, what is intuition? Or maybe has an experience with like fear and a culture of control of like being scared to trust something that feels like, well, I don't know, it's mysterious. Can I trust that? Just some kind of rewiring to recognize like this is coming from within me and my body is telling me something can be a
Yeah.
helpful thing. It's been helpful for me.
It's a weird concept that our bodies talk to us. Um, how these the conversations I'm having the past few weeks have gotten very interesting.
Okay.
Um, I mean, so something Michael Singer talks about is like the voice in your head. So he's like, you can actually control the voice in your head, like say to yourself, hello, 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 but like inside your head, and you can actually hear yourself saying hello. So he's like, is that you? Is that something else? Like, what is that voice in your head?
Mm. Yeah, that's so interesting. Yeah, I mean, and this like feels like a nature of consciousness conversation. Like, what
Yeah,
is that voice in your head? Uh, Fascinating. Yeah, fascinating. And when it arises, like, and you don't feel like your mind is controlling it, um, what is that? What is that? Super interesting.
it's a deep conversation, and I'm not exactly sure how to delve into it, to be honest. Um, so so that's interesting. You brought up like a fundamentalist Christian. I've literally had like 3 conversations in the past few weeks with people that were brought up in some kind of like super conservative Christian environment and then have rejected it. And they still consider themselves to be, I think they say spiritual but not religious. Is that how people typically phrase it? Or is it religious and not spiritual? I think it's spiritual and not religious.
Yeah, I mean, I would describe myself that way. Yeah, yeah. I think like religion has the context of like a systematic approach, I guess, or an institution attached to it.
Sure,
For me, like there's like I look for spiritual communities or people who are non-hierarchical, like that's one of their and also direct access. Like I don't have special gifts that you don't have. We all have access to this within ourselves and can develop that practice of understanding it. I don't need a guru or a person to tell me what to do.
sure.
Um, yeah.
So the concept of like creativity that comes from the universe, like some people be say like I received a download, or sometimes you just have an idea and then you can like write for 2 hours straight and it just flows. That that's like, is that coming from our brains or is that coming from somewhere further than our brains?
Ooh, that's a great question. I mean, I don't know, but I have explored this question, and I think there really is something, yeah, where artists talk about this. I read a book by Rick Rubin. I forget what it's called. Maybe you know it.
Creative act,
Um,
maybe.
yes. Yep, that's it. And this is, yeah, exactly a really common experience where it feels like the song came to me, or, I knew, like, I heard this song or this melody, and then someone else it was on the radio later, like, someone else picked it up. So this sort of idea that it's fascinating that we kind of, like, have these antenna to, like, a collective consciousness or, something that's, like, not not possessed by the individual alone, I guess, would be how I describe it. Um, there's also an incredible podcast, Telepathy Tapes. Do you know this?
I don't.
Highly recommend.
Okay.
It gets into this. Yeah. So this like idea of like tuning into a frequency. Like can I create the conditions as a creative person to be tuned into a certain frequency that when that frequency is available, I will be able to pick it up and I will be able to be collaborative and co-create whatever song, writing, art that wants to come through me.
Yeah. This is interesting. I there's so many interesting things, but I truly, like, don't know what to ask. Um,
I mean, it's numinous, like, it just is like, how do you start diving into the infinite mystery, you know?
right.
Like, yeah, that's and there's some of this like, I have, a teacher I've been working with for 3 years. Reiki is one of the things that I study with her that people are
Okay.
maybe more familiar with, but different types of energy work, and something she's talked about is, like, there's an infinite energy field, and it's organized in different ways. So, like, Reiki symbols are a way of, like, organizing energy and, like, a focusing tool so we can have, as human beings, like, riding our training wheels into the infinite. It gives us something to, like, recognize.
Okay. So a lot of the work I do is around technology and AI, and I've come to the conclusion, and I don't know if this is intuition or something else, but like some part of AI is like very bad for humanity. Not saying all of AI is bad for humanity, but some part of it is. Um, Part of it I think is the speed, and I know we've interacted some on LinkedIn around like the speed of life or how we're living. um, AI can literally process faster than our brains can. And so, in a way, whenever you're interacting with AI or even just the industry as a whole, it's like it's moving faster than I can keep up with on a comprehension level. And it leaves you feeling like super drained. Um,
Mm.
so that would be so almost like the speed at which AI is advancing leaves humans drained of energy. So that's an interesting concept, and I think you said something like the best way to fight that is to slow down even more. So, like, instead of, um then you get into, like, meditation or Ryan Holiday, like, stillness is the key. I don't know what you've explored in that way, but how do you think that slowing down helps fight the speed of technology?
Well, I don't know if I can fight the speed of technology, but I do think we can, um and I don't know if that's necessarily a goal, you know, like, but I think there's ways to recognize that perhaps there are alternative ways to, um, that maybe, yeah, our brains don't understand, um, but that there are ways to listen to nature, to our bodies, to whatever the infinite field is, that perhaps are working in parallel with AI. Like, there's an interesting concept that AI or any technology is like showing us what's possible in a different way. You know, it's like
Okay.
humans are building something that exists and that is possible in a different way. And this is how our brains came up with it, but maybe there's a way for our bodies to map those similar sorts of things. Um, I don't know if that makes any sense.
S People are starting to talk about the singularity. I think I need to study more about what the singularity is, but almost like humans and technology becoming one in a way. I think that's what it is talking about. Are you familiar with that concept?
A little bit. Yeah, like Ray Kurzweil was talking about this a while ago. I don't know if he still is, but I think I watched a documentary on it.
Okay.
Maybe I read a book. I don't know. I don't remember. But somewhat, yeah, somewhat. Um, that's yeah, super interesting.
But then, like, on the opposite end, I read a piece by a Catholic guy, and he was talking about, like, the Eucharist, like, taking the bread and the blood of Jesus, and that being a singularity with, like, God. So I know your background is with fundamental Christian. So, like, there's almost we can have a singularity with the creator in a way, or we can have a singularity with creation, our own creation. Um, it's just
Interesting.
it's just getting weird. Um,
Things are weird. I mean, things are weird, and I think that's, like it gives us an opportunity to recognize, like, "Whoa, the systems that we thought we had or that we're familiar with are changing at a crazy rate." And, like, what is happening? You know, it's out of control, it's out of my control, my brain doesn't understand it, and I think it gives us opportunity to be curious, just to be curious about what else is going on. Like, if this crazy wild thing that I could never imagine is possible, what else is possible? In,
yeah.
like yeah.
No, no, that makes sense. Almost like a humility to just kind of openly receive whatever's being created. I read a really funny piece on vibe teaching. So vibe coding is like where you explain and then, the software creates code on your behalf. But vibe teaching is where, well, basically the professors are using AI to create the tests. The students are using AI to answer the questions, and then the professors are using AI to grade the questions. So the students aren't actually learning anything and the professor's not actually doing his job, and we end up with this situation where he's pretending to teach, they're pretending to learn, and it's just at the end of the day, like, all their brains are atrophying. So there's a way to spin that positively. I just spun it negatively, but um just
That's so interesting. So I'll bring in telepathy again.
okay.
So I the Telepathy Tapes is a podcast, about the idea that, kids who are autistic and nonverbal are telepathic.
Okay.
So it bring introduces that idea. I have some experience with this population. I have a friend, whose kiddo is nonverbal autistic, and he types. So he's able to communicate, which is an unimaginable journey to get there, like, their bodies just don't cooperate. It's the reason they can't speak is not at all to do with their brains not being able to comprehend, but it's a physical, limitation.
Okay.
So that's just a pretty cursory from my limited understanding of all of this. But what is apparent is that when they're able to type, they are able to communicate a lot of things that they haven't necessarily been taught or learned or, even to like it came about, I think, more because parents were like, "I'm hiding candy from my kid and he knows where I put it." Like, just like, how does he know that?
Oh,
How
that
does he
is
know?
weird.
So
Yeah.
this idea that you could a person, a human being on this earth, many human beings on this planet are able to know things without having gone through the process of learning them.
Okay.
So it's kind of, similar where like, well, if they already know things, what's the point of educating them? Well, there's something to be gained in that process of learning, right?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, so, like, right now you can, type into Chat GPT and get the answer to almost any question you can imagine. Um, but the way I've been thinking about it is, okay, you have the knowledge, but typically when you're gaining knowledge, you're going through an experience. You could even call it a story. So, like, um, for example, like my wife was walking out of Walmart and there was like an older lady that was um, checking the carts or something. And she had bought some tomato seeds or tomato plants. And this lady like starts to tell her stories about, having a garden growing up, and how you should plant tomatoes. So like my wife could go to Chat GPT and, look up how do I plant tomatoes, or she could talk to another human being about their experience planting tomatoes. And humans relate on story and learn from story, and especially our own story, more than we are like just words that were produced and put in our face. Um, Meaning, like, if we get to knowledge and skip the experience part, we're going to end up with a whole lot of smart dumb people, if that makes sense. The
Yeah.
a lot of knowledge, zero experience, which is what
Mm.
AI is. AI is enormous amounts of knowledge, but AI has never done anything.
Yeah, that's such an interesting point, and it also comes back to, like, AI is disembodied. It doesn't have access to the wisdom of a body,
Sure,
and we do have that as a
right.
physical presence. And so what's missing in AI that's information that doesn't come through a body? What kind of information does come through a body, and why is that important for humans to consider and maintain?
This may be a weird place to go, but do you believe humans were created or that they evolved?
Um, I mean, everything has to be created and everything has to evolve. That's my answer. I think it's both, you know? I don't think we
Sure.
were, like, magically I don't think we're special. I don't think humans are special outside of every other living and even non-living thing, you know? I think there's a consciousness that, and I think there are risks and dangers to believing that humans were specially created.
Yeah, the way I like to explain it is like, let's say there's a pile of dirt on the ground. So, like, if you wait long enough, let's say millions or billions of years, will that pile of dirt turn into an iPhone? Like, everybody knows intuitively, of course not. Like, that's ridiculous. Um, I work with people that build software. So, like, a custodian like Charles Schwab. Like, if you take a pile of dirt and let it sit there long enough, will it eventually turn into Schwab? Like, because of entropy, that's impossible. But yet, so many people believe basically that that's what happened. Like, humans evolved from a lower life form or even from like dirt, which I think is ridiculous, but it is very popularly believed. So I'm willing to accept that.
Yeah, I mean, I think even like I I really am trying to learn to like understand that things are in balance more so than, like, a hierarchy. Like, what is a lower life form? What does that mean?
Sure,
Maybe, like, I don't know how wise the trees are, so how could I measure their intelligence? Because I don't
sure.
understand tree language.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it's I mean, it's such a again, I think this is our brains the limitations of our brain trying to understand something that like, if we tried to understand how does I don't know, that's I was gonna give a metaphor that doesn't make sense, but maybe it doesn't make sense in our brain, and, like, holding some sense of mystery is kinda what we have to do.
For sure. No, absolutely. Some of my favorite movies have to do with like not time travel, but time moving at different speeds. So like Interstellar or Arrival. They take a 15-minute flight down to a planet, and when they come back, it's been like 20 years. Um, and just realizing that potentially other people, not other people, but there are ways to experience time at different speeds and potentially like travel within time at a three-dimensional level. I think that concept is incredibly fascinating that you could actually visit different points in time in physical space, which they show at the end of the movie. I'm not saying I believe that's possible for humans like on Earth, but the concept is very fascinating to me.
Yeah, it is fascinating. I mean, it's yeah, like, we experience time in a linear way, but that's maybe not necessarily how things unfold. But how do we get outside of time? Maybe it's possible. in certain ways.
Maybe, maybe. All right, well, let's try to tie this into financial advice, and the work that financial advisors do. So, what you've worked with financial advisors around creating video,
I have.
and what do you help them achieve or accomplish for them or their clients?
Yeah, I help them really tune into their authentic voice and story, kinda, going back to, like, you talking about story and the importance of that. Um That yeah, and I think this ties into intuition because it ties into authenticity and really, like, who am I and what am I here to do, you know? It's those, like, big questions, but in the context of your career, like, what is my unique offering, my unique story, my authentic voice? What matters to me? Why am I doing this? Um, those are things that connect human to human, and I think really advisors, like, as they're competing with AI or, fast, like, what is a human to human? Why is that important? Why is that an important connection? Why do we want to work with a human being who understands that experience? And what is uniquely human also? That yeah, I think advisors, who are cultivating that and marketing in that way are going to be able to compete with AI not by being faster or better, but by being human.
Yeah. No, I think it's the ability to relate, and I think we're able to relate because we have similar experiences. Like a practical example is like if someone's been a multimillionaire for 20 years and they just haven't worried about, their next meal for a very long time, and then talking to someone that's living paycheck to paycheck, there I've like experienced personally, they have trouble even understanding what the person's going through because they haven't dealt with that. They haven't had that experience in such a long time. Um, so that's interesting.
Yeah, empathy.
Yeah,
Yeah. And that relatability, like, it's interesting, I was asking, Claude AI about some like medical details with someone in my family. And I just wanted the information. And, it keeps trying to be like, this sounds like it's a hard thing for you. How is that feeling? And I'm like, I don't want to talk to you about my feelings. Like, you don't understand. You don't have a body. Like, but it tries to duplicate that. And maybe, maybe there are some like helpful resources or thinking through your own feelings, like, maybe that can be helpful. I don't wanna, necessarily dismiss that entirely, but I do think there's absolutely something important to me in my visceral response of, like, "No, I don't want that from you.
yeah,
I don't want empathy from you, even though that's nice, you're not, like, qualified or equipped to give me that."
sure. Yeah, no, that is interesting. So like another example is there's AI now that are like daily coaches. So it'll look at your calendar, look at your emails and like tell you what to focus on. And so I did that a little bit one day with Claude. I was like, here's my top 3 priorities for today. But I told it when I was getting distracted. It's like, okay, now I'm looking at LinkedIn, now I'm opening Gmail, whatever it was. And then it would be like, all right, now get back to whatever my top priority was. Um, and it's like you can use AI as a crutch like that, but way more valuable would be actually learning like the self-discipline skills to prioritize, to stay on task, to get into flow state. Um, so you're actually like hamstringing yourself if you rely too much on technology to do things that you should be able to do on your own, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. That's super interesting. Yeah, 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 and yeah, becoming a person. I think you listened to my podcast with Carl Richards,
Yeah, a
and
couple
he
times.
talked about yeah, training his dog, and, like, it's not
Yep,
necessarily that he wanted to, like, be a have a bird dog that, be like a hunter, but he wanted to become a person who had the discipline to train a dog to do that, and
right.
that yeah, like choosing a task or a goal that would, yeah, change you in the process.
Right. No, I liked how he said, if he's talking to someone that he hadn't seen for 6 months and be like, "Oh, yeah, I'm training a bird dog." And they're like, "Oh, is that new?" And he's like, "Yeah, isn't that interesting?" I forget exactly what he said, but something like that. That was cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and that's, like, what is the human experience, Like, and there's, like, in the spiritual world, there can be this idea of, like, well, like, I'm I'm my soul chose this body and this experience, but I'm, like, infinite, and so, like, well, what's the point? Kinda can arise as a question, um, if you recognize that you are universal consciousness, infinite, like, what's the point of doing anything? Um, and it's like living the story, having that empathy, that human experience, becoming changed, having, it's gets boring to be the infinite void, I guess. Um, yeah, we wanna have a human experience.
What is the point?
Ooh. Um, I mean, I think for me it's connection, it's empathy, it's, relating. Like, I mean, for me, what gives me meaning and really excites me is when I feel like, "Oh my gosh, someone gets it." Like, I feel like, "Ooh, I belong." I feel that little spark of like, "I'm not alone. Wow." That's like that to me is the point of feeling, like, not isolated. Um, I don't know if that answers your question.
The point is to belong?
And relate, like, I think
Yeah,
that's, not just belonging, but relating, sharing experience, going on the journey, like, it sounds really cliché, but, like, yeah, it's having an experience and enjoying it also,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so I follow Harry Stebbings. He's a venture capitalist, I believe, out of the UK. But he has a podcast and he's interviewed like 107 billionaires, and he's like, only a few of them are happy. So like out of 107 that he's interviewed, only a few are happy. And then another thing he said is the vast majority of them have some sort of like issue with their parents. So something caused them to not feel like they belonged, and so they're seeking belonging through success, basically. I mean, I think I'm doing this myself in a way. Like I've done a lot of things to try to be successful because I don't think I felt like I belonged, which is interesting.
Hmm, yeah, well, we live in a culture that tells us that's how to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that will bring you happiness and belonging and, specialness.
Yeah. So I'm sure you're familiar with Michael Kitz's, but like at the end of every podcast, he asks his guests, what does success mean to you? Um, I think that's a very interesting. That's something Rick Rubin talks about in his book. Like success is individual. Success is your own experience. What Yeah, what's your version of success? How do you know if you're being successful?
Hmm, that's a yeah. I mean, and this is interesting because I do not have, like, the success that culture tells us that we should have. Um, so I spend time thinking about, like, well, am I not successful if I'm not, traditionally financially successful at the moment? And that's, like, a really thing I have to, like, recognize in myself that, I tell myself the story of I'm not successful. Um, but yeah, success for me, and as I really rewire this or retrain myself to recognize what is success for me, I think it's showing up every day and being myself. Like, being able to live an authentic life, being able to enjoy creative freedom and explore and be curious. Like, those are things that really feel authentic to me that that I'm like, "Wow, I get to wake up and be curious about the world
Yeah.
and have conversations like this with people where we get to be curious together," and, like, that's really cool for me. I love that. I love creating, um, if I found a feather on the ground, which I just am looking at many of my feathers I've found throughout the years, and I get to create something with a feather, or I get
Yeah.
to write something, or have, a cool conversation where I feel like it's like, "Oh, we were really, like there was something there, some kind of connection being made." That feels successful to me.
It is hard, especially when everybody is aiming for financial success or social media success, to find your place. How do you translate what you're doing currently into, like, meeting your basic needs, like, food, shelter, clothing, money? Um, is it easy to translate that into money, or is it hard?
No.
No.
Well, I don't know if it's easy or hard. So, yeah, I mean, that's been, like, a really lifelong for me, like, I'm so, like, on the, like I grew up with not a lot of money, and I think, like, that I as a survival again, this is, like, back to impulse, like, as a survival instinct, I have told myself the story, like, "I don't need it. I can find meaning in other ways." So I'm, like, overcorrected on
Sure.
the, rejection or resistance or just I don't belong in that. And this is, yeah, really something I'm working on, like, recognizing I do have basic needs that need to be met,
Right.
and how can I do that? Because, yeah, our culture doesn't necessarily value or overvalues, like, you're either, like, super creatively successful or not at all, like the starving artist kind of model. So yeah, what are other things that I can do that offer value to people that bring meaning and also meet the marketplace and pay me?
Yeah. Is there particular transformations? I mean, I think some of this stuff's kinda cliche, but it's like if you meet a person at point A and they're trying to get to point B, is there a certain kind of transformation that you feel like you can help people achieve?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I'm starting to get into, like, offering energy work in a group setting or individually, and I think if someone is curious enough to be open to something like that, um, I yeah, would love to offer people an experience of, like, going from curiosity to energy work to experiencing it and having that experience and reflecting either like, "Oh, it wasn't scary, it wasn't what I thought it would be. It gave me a tool to tune into my body. It opened, myself up to a more relaxed state." Like, yeah, if I can bring someone from feeling like they don't know how to access a relaxed state to knowing how to do that or knowing there's a tool available that they could trust and consider, that would be super exciting to me.
Yeah. No, that's definitely needed. I think whether people realize they need it or not, I think that's part of the battle. Just for me personally, like, I've been kinda sick the past few days. I've been really grinding hard at work, pumping out a ton of content, podcasts. I feel like I've 200 things I need to do that I haven't done yet. Um, but today I'm living a lot slower today. Like, I had a really
Mm.
early call because I hired a coach that lives in another country, so the time zone is different. But then, like, I talked to my wife for a while, I went to the store, I had a phone call with my brother, but, like, my day today is just very different than a typical, like, grind from 9 to 5 or something. Um, yeah, and I'm much happier. But it took me a while to get in the headspace to be, like, okay that all these things aren't getting done, in a way.
Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, if I can help people go from recognizing that slow is fast is not true, that, like, actually getting slower and listening to your body, like, if your body is telling you, "Hey, I'm sick," and you don't listen to that, you can power through, but, like, eventually that's gonna catch up with you.
Right.
Um, or, if you take 2 days off when you have a cold, then you're back to, like, 80% by day 3 and 100% by day 4. Wow, you actually didn't lose 2 weeks of just kind of this drudgery yuckiness.
Sure.
That's yeah, listening to your body getting slow to go fast.
Are there a couple tools you can share around how you could help people do that? Or
Um,
how you do it in your own life? I think
yeah, I mean, it definitely is a practice for sure, but I think, like, just recognizing, like, there are cycles in the world that are beyond your control, and sometimes things feel aligned to, like, flow and go with something and, like, get it done, and maybe if, like, things just are not working, like, you're trying to, do something, my computer isn't connecting to the internet, like, it doesn't have to be some magical force that's trying. You don't have to believe in that it's, like, trying to get you to do something different, but, like, if something is really frustrating you, maybe just pause and, like, be like, "Okay, I'm not gonna do this thing that I wanted to do right now. I'm gonna put my attention somewhere else and do something else and come back to this later," rather than be here for an hour frustrated and trying to power through. Like, that's a simple tool I found myself yesterday. Like, my internet wasn't connecting and, just reminding myself of like, well, this is really frustrating and I could try to do all these workarounds to make it happen right now, or I could just think, "All right, what's another way I can approach this? I can set it down and put my energy doing something else."
yeah. No, it's I was trying to think, like, what are some of the most peaceful times in my life, or when, like, the power goes out for a day or 2. It's like, it got
Yeah.
super peaceful. The phones weren't working, internet wasn't working, couldn't turn any lights on, but it got very calm, you know what I mean? I think Energy Force is interesting because I think that specifically I don't are you familiar with Harry Potter?
No.
Not really? Okay. There's something in Harry Potter called Dementors, and they're kind of like ghosts that hover around and, like, suck people's energy out of them. Literally, they, like, suck their life force out of them. And I feel like in a way screens do that, especially with the scrolling and the social media and the addictions and, getting stuck on YouTube Shorts or something, like, your life is literally being, like, stolen from you, And specifically with AI too, because AI is like a window into infinite knowledge. It's like it's so overwhelming at times to feel like, well, what do I even focus on, or what do I do, or how do I use it? I have all this power now, and I think that actually sucks energy from us. So finding ways to pump the energy back up is interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been, like, really tuning into my own, like, addictions lately and, just, like, fundamentally, what is an addiction? Like, doing something that you you're not getting benefit from, but you're still doing it. So, like, just trying to, tune into that, and there's
Sounds
so
like work.
many.
Sounds like most people's jobs.
Yeah, can we
you
be
hate you
addicted to
hate
a job?
doing it, probably.
Fascinating, fascinating. And what are we addicted to that, we get as a benefit from doing that? Because there
Like,
is some reward, it's a reward
right?
system,
Sure.
but it's ultimately not healthy.
We're
Worth a
addicted to the
question,
paycheck.
worth a question.
There's this really funny clip, I think it's from a TV show or something, but it's, like, set in the, I don't know, 1920s, 1930s, and this well-to-do couple, like, is walking down the street, and there's this guy selling all these machines, like washing machine, stove, fridge, um, and they're like, "Why do we need all these things?" And he's like, "Oh, well, then you'll have all this extra time, you can do other things." And they're like, "What other things?" And he's like, "Well, you could go swimming or go out to lunch or," and they're at the end of it, they're like, "No, we're gonna be so busy paying off all these machines, we will have no time at all." So, like, at the end, it's like all this
Mm,
technology has not actually saved them any time, money, stress. Like, That I think actually is a massive lie with AI and the world at large right now, is like technology will give you your time back. I think technology has taken more time from people than it's given back, for sure.
Super insightful. Yeah, what is being extracted from me in this experience is
Yeah,
a good question to ask. And who is benefiting from that extraction?
the S&P 500. That's interesting. Cool. We have about 10 minutes left. Anywhere else you feel like going today? This is
Oh my
the most different podcast I've ever done, but I'm just gonna roll with it.
god. Thank you. I mean, this is so wild. I got into like, woo, out there stuff. I don't know, if your audience is into that, but uh I like talking about weird stuff because the
S
world is weird. And I think there's like, yeah, there's weird stuff that we can't explain. Like, we all have some experience of like, that was weird. I'm just gonna ignore that and go on because I can't explain it. Like, but the world is getting weirder, and maybe it's time to get curious about the weird stuff that you've experienced in life.
Yeah. No, there's a quote, something like, "When the world gets weird, the weird turn pro." Um,
I love that. It's my time to shine.
there you go. No, there's a lot of people into this stuff. Maybe not like wealth management at large, but there's a lot of um, behavioral therapy, um, alignment coaching, impact coaching, because in a
Mhm.
way, AI is destroying value. So, like, if you used to get 100 basis points for like managing investments, like picking stocks, and then that kind of got commoditized. So now you're just like picking stocks and financial planning. We'll do cash flow analysis, we'll do budgeting, we'll help you plan for retirement, and AI is going to be able to do all that like super easily. So like all these things are just getting commoditized, and advisors are like scrambling to figure out how to continue justifying the 100 basis points. Um, so I think we're going to end up in this weird territory. Like it's going to be like life coaching, energy coaching, health coaching, impact coaching. It's because all the other things are going to be so easy to do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It is a shift and a transformation and evolution, like, I guess, are things created or do they evolve can apply to systems and people and groups and professions. Yeah. So yeah, reinventing ourselves and I think it starts with our own selves, our own humans, like,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, for sure.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah, thank you for having me and winding this conversation into weird places.
No, yeah, it's been interesting. We'll see what people say if they listen to it. It's funny
I'm curious.
sometimes a lot of the things I write, like you could say intuition like leads me to write certain things, but then my thinking brain takes over and is like, you should edit that out. Um, Typically the stuff that like yesterday even I thought of a title for a Substack, and then I decided to put like a more generic title, and then I sent the email out, and then I really regretted it. I was like, the other title would have been so much more resonating with people. Um, that it's interesting. I have to fight this battle to like this comes back full circle, I guess, to intuition. Like, when do you trust your intuition, and when do you override it with thinking?
Yeah. And I mean, there is risk involved in it. Like, you don't have to become a full-time weirdo right away also, like, to be curious about things like this too or
Sure.
be open to it. But yeah, there is risk because and then back to belonging, like, I think, there is sort of an instinct of like, well, if I do this thing that's a little strange, but then I regret it. I know it will actually connect with people that sort of that like being not part of the group, not accepted because I was strange. That's a survival instinct, and that like does serve to keep us safe in a lot of situations. So that's not like you shouldn't listen to that ever. Um, but yeah, it's worth. edging into curiosity about
Start
things that are
start a side
actually
hustle as a weirdo before you go full-time weirdo. That's gonna be the title of this podcast.
practical advice. Practical advice, yeah.
Alright, awesome. Carrie, well, I appreciate you coming on. This has been a very interesting conversation.
Thank you so much, Joe.
Hope you have a good weekend.
Yeah, you too, feel better too.
Alright, appreciate it. Talk to you later.
Thank you.
Bye.